Enjoy your meeting. Just a reminder, today's meeting is being recorded.
All right, so we can go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about big data predictive analysis, and it's going to be presented by Tim Algary, if that's correct, Tim, how I'm pronouncing it. He is the
Yes.
Chief Technology Officer of Jackson Healthcare, and we're going to leave the last 10 minutes for questions. There's going to be a feature on there where you can raise your hand under your participant name. We will hold the last 10 minutes for that and make sure that we leave enough time to get all your questions answered. Please make sure to mute yourselves. We really don't want any interruptions for the speaker. And with that, Tim, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Perry. Good morning, everyone. As Perry mentioned, I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Jackson Healthcare, which I'll go into in a couple slides, the number of companies that belong to Jackson Healthcare. I've been in healthcare since 1984, worked for companies HBOC/McKesson, Forsay Technologies, Healthport, and then now Jackson Healthcare. So I've been around for a little while. I'm going to present for about 50 minutes and then leave the last 10 minutes for Q&A. So Jackson Healthcare is a list of companies, actually 14 you see here, but it also there's several other companies that Rick Jackson owns. Within each of these independently run companies, there are gigabytes and some terabytes of data, and each of them own a slice of that data. My team is responsible for the technology oversight for these companies. Some of the larger companies have their own development shops, and then I oversee and consult with those guys. We also have several other companies that I'll mention. These are the list of the companies. There's 15 there listed. There's also 7 other companies that Rick Jackson owns that I help with, Family Christian Stores, iDisciple, Faith Bridge, just to name a few. So there are a total of 22 companies that I assist with. These companies here are all healthcare related and are tied to the staffing of physicians, nurses, therapists. We also have 2 new companies that help with staffing of CEOs, all the C-suite, CFOs, CIOs as well. We are about 680 here in Alpharetta. We're off of Old Milton in Kimball Ridge, and we have a little over 1,000 associates throughout the United States. We have an office in Orlando, Dallas, and Seattle, Washington, and then we're virtual with a lot of other of the associates. And you'll see the sign saying, "Welcome to our lake house." We grew so fast, we had to sublease the Divide building next door. We're on the first floor, and we're taking 11,000 square feet later this summer. And so we call it the lake house, and it's really just a retention pond, but we kind of romanticized it, calling it the lake house. So we've won the best places to work the last 3 years for Atlanta Business Chronicle, and then we just won the second healthiest places to work as well. Our culture is very important for us at Jackson Healthcare, and I think those 2 awards kind of speak volumes. So what is big data? If you look at Wikipedia, it's the strategy of analyzing large volumes of data gathered by a variety of sources, including social networks like Facebook, Twitter, videos, digital images, sensors, and sales transaction records, which can make up your CRM, your applicant tracking, as well as, in our case, Great Plains.
Those 3, I guess, are the ones scheduled for.
If your phone is not muted, please go ahead and do so because we can hear your phone. Thank you.
So this is my definition of big data, and I'll talk about what's the difference between big data and predictive analysis in just a minute, but it is the combining of past, present, and future views of one's data side by side so the business can make better and more informed decisions. So this is a very important mindset. Having data is not valuable. Using data really is. And I think all of our corporations, we have terabytes, petabytes of data, but are we utilizing it? And we're starting to utilize some of it through, ad hoc reports, but, you need to use that data. However, using your data for analysis and more important to predict future actions of your customers is where we want to be. Like having a Maserati, if you're only driving 50 miles per hour down 400, why have a Maserati? This graph right here kind of shows you the different steps of business value and complexity. Most companies are reporting on their data through ad hoc and SQL Server stored procedures, and that's the first circle there. Fewer companies are using tools like Burst or ClickView to visualize their data. Some people are using, Cognos and Cubes, but even fewer are having dashboards that display KPIs on how they're doing in sales, revenue, and customer retention. Companies like Salesforce have built tools that simplify this data within Salesforce. Well, what's next? Predictive analysis. Predictive analysis tells you the when, the where, the how, and you can make business decisions based on that. How fast is the data growing, though? This is a great picture of all the different sources of data with Twitter and Facebook and Instant Messenger and so forth. The other one, the next to last, is pretty amazing. This is data created by your systems. We use a CRM applicant tracking system here as well as Great Plains, and it just is growing the amount of data over time. The other thing that people don't realize is how you can harvest emails, and that number is growing as well. The other thing that I've learned since I started doing big data is most people don't realize you can buy Facebook raw data. They identify that, but you can find trends in that data and verbiage in that data and use it to your advantage. So everyone's used the term business intelligence, and you've been hearing about predictive analysis. What are the differences? Well, BI is an umbrella term that includes the applications, the infrastructure, the tools, and best practices that enable access to the information to improve and make decisions and on performance. Gartner has a lot to say about predictive and big data. It says the worldwide business intelligence and analytics market has reached $16.9 billion in revenue. And I'll show you in a few slides how big that marketplace is. And it's an increase of over 5% from last year. The BI and analytics market is in the final stages of a multi-year shift the big shift is from IT-led system reporting to more of the business leading it. So it's changing from more of the data scientists, the DBAs doing all the heavy lifting to there's tools where it will do all that heavy lifting for you, so the business is actually using the system to do predictive analysis. Sorry, slide went slow there. This slide kind of shows you once again, the various differences between the IT-centric versus the shift from being more business-related. Creating an analytics content via an IT-centric reporting starts with the IT consolidating and modeling of data in advance. The difference is the modern platform supports IT-enabled development and analytics content. So the business is doing the what-ifs and the how and the whens versus the IT. So you got to ask yourself, if you're starting this product, where do you start? Do you need the data scientist on your team, or do you need someone do you need to go with a tool that will do it for you. As promised, this is the big slide. This is just a few of the vendors out there, the landscape for the big data. It just, everyone's in the marketplace, and you know, of course, there's the usual big boys like the Oracles and SAPs and so forth, but there's a lot of little niche players that concentrate on either infrastructure, on the actual analytics, or on the actual applications. You know, so everyone has a solution, but what is the solution that is right for you? But that's for another webinar. So what's big data and predictive analysis? Imagine a world where historic financial data could be used to do predictive models for anticipating customer outcomes from current business opportunities. So what I'm saying is, everyone does a great job of tracking sales, everyone does a great job of tracking your customer, but what if you can predict that a customer is going to buy X, Y, Z in June, or there's going to be a sales decline in July, or in our case, a physician, there'll be Northside Hospital will need a physician, a cardiac physician in April because in the last 3 years they needed one in April. Or if there's some data out there that is telling us that Northside Hospital is expanding in a certain area, they may need doctors. Here's some more examples of big data. I think everyone's probably seen the movie Revenant. So Hollywood, the producers of Revenant partnered with a small software company called Lightwave to measure how the audiences were reacting to the film. It provided measurements of the heart rate, body temperature, movements, and how the skin reacted during the film. And if you all have seen that movie, it's pretty gruesome in certain stages, but they were collecting real lifetime data and doing analysis on that of that movie. Pretty interesting. In the healthcare, we do the same thing. We kind of gather structured and unstructured data and try to apply a predictive root cause analysis. And then if you have a data scientist, they may apply natural language processing. R is an example of that, and they've have done insights by identifying trends and patterns and deviations. So this slide is kind of showing you on the left side all the different sources of data that could be out there. For instance, there's pricing information, sales activity, customer service. You can get great information from blogs out there and kind of check the temperature of your customer, knowing if you need to make changes based on that data there. And the middle section, or the right side, I should say, is how do I analyze that data? This is actually the process that you would use. So how do you get started? In our case, we're in the staffing business, and we do a great job of looking at our data and seeing how our sales. But what if you could predict your fill rate in our business, or could you your order to close ratio, if you could close that? If you could find physicians or nurses or therapists that you normally do not find and use that to close an opening, that is very valuable. You're talking, in our case, if you could change a percentage of fill rate, millions of dollars of additional revenue. So it's a big deal. But you need to work with your business. So we're working with one of our larger companies on a project right now. And the first question you need to ask is, what's the business problem that you're trying to solve? You don't want to go through the build it and they will come scenario, because you really don't have the right expectations. But you need to come to the business and say, what business problem are you trying to solve? I recommend not doing the big bang and prioritizing, having a list of, in our case, we have a list of close to 15 priorities, and we're tackling the first 5. So prioritize that versus the big bang, because if you do the big bang, in my experience, this project could last for years, and then people forget what you're really working on. So prioritize it, develop a list of priorities, and work on those lists. And then what will move the needle? Okay, so you finish your project. How do you know if you're successful or not? So you build in metrics, and those can show increase in revenue, reduce in expenses, or increase in customer satisfaction, or you could have your own metrics. In our case, like I said, fill rate and order to close. So if my fill rate's at 30% now, after doing this analysis over 6 months or a year, whatever your time frame you're looking at, if your fill rate is 25%, is that successful, or is it successful if you get to 20%? So you have to agree with the business up front to say how will you be marked successful, because, you know, a lot of times in development projects, you know, IT or development will feel like you're successful, but then the customer is left with a feeling of, wow, we really didn't accomplish anything. But if you both agree with those metrics ahead of time, you'll be more successful. This is a famous slide, kind of going to that. You really need to do very good documentation of what you're trying to accomplish, the data you're going to use, your success factors, all documented, and everyone is singing from the same book. Because, like I said, the customer in this picture, the customer expected the top left, or what you thought the customer wanted was on the top left. That's what you heard. But if you go all the way through that, there's different ways an engineer would solve it, a project leader would solve it, sales would solve it, but on the bottom right is really all what the customer wanted. So it's clear, setting clear expectations and making sure that they match with what you're working on. I know that sounds very simple, but I see this on a daily basis of trying to set expectations and trying to understand what the customer really is wanting. Once you've done all this, you have to determine, like I said, where you're getting your data from. In our case, we're getting data from various sites. We have job boards that we get data from. We have our own CRM applicant tracking system. There's blogs that we can read, healthcare staffing blogs. There's social sites that doctors and nurses use, like Doximity or Sermo. And then on the job boards, let me go back to that. You can kind of scrape job posts and to see what's out there, what are people using, and so forth. And then lastly, industry data dumps. You can purchase HIMSS or Definitive Healthcare or other vendors that have dumps that you can take that complement your current source of data. So you compare that with, say, your CRM data for hospitals and physicians, because those same physicians on a bigger scale will be either in Definitive or HIMSS. This slide is kind of showing you the different processes in the flow, and there's these are not nailed down. This is according to Tim Allegary. But first, like I mentioned, you have to define your project, define your outcomes, your deliverables, your business objectives, and what data you're going to use. That's your first step. Your next one is data mining for predictive analysis. You need to prepare the data for and receive it in multiple sources. Like I mentioned earlier, you could have structured data that's from a relational database, and then you can have unstructured data that that doesn't have the schema and everything. So you need to look at both structured and unstructured. And then third, there's a data analysis step, and it's the process of looking at your data, cleaning the data, in some cases transforming the data. It may not be all in the same format, and then modeling that data and then you're doing that so you can discover useful information and arrive at some conclusions. The fourth step is the statistical analysis that enables you to validate the assumptions, the hypothesis, and test, using standard deviation or in statistical models. So what you're doing there is you have all your assumptions where you think, in my case, the fill rate can get to here. This is the step where if it doesn't or it does, why did it? And you're validating your assumptions from the very beginning. And then lastly, your predictive data modeling deployment. This is where you actually deploy your analytics results and then make it an everyday process where it's updated every day. You have dashboards. My fill rate's at 29%. Oh, my fill rate now is at 26%. Something so you can always watch that report. So I've been telling you what, in my experience, what to do. There are some key factors on what not to do. There's Thomas Redman in Harvard Business Review listed 6 not to do's, and I totally agree with them, and I'll go over those. You prefer these are steps not to do. You prefer intuition over data. So a lot of people think they know their data. Even on this project, the business owners thought they knew the data, and they did generalities and overall conclusions and assumptions, but once you actually get into the data, there's a lot of aha moments that you discover. So first step is let the data do the talking instead of your intuition. The second one is to rig the system, and that is where sabotage is a strong word, but you kind of move the system to work the way you think it's going to work. And like the first one, let the data kind of prescribe what you're doing and what your goals are. And then the other is second guess others. That kind of goes along with the first one is about don't let your intuition or your guesses kind of dictate that. And then fourth one, this is something that everyone does in every project, not even being a big data project, but don't spend so much time in analysis paralysis where you're constantly making assumptions and says, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. Get going. Start small, end big, and don't spend so much time on your analysis up front of things. I'm not saying not to plan, but I'm saying you go to a point where you're spending too much time. And then next is the groupthink. Is a bad mistake of letting the larger group dictate the assumptions and the priorities. Really come down and how solve the problem, identify the problem, and then work from there. And then lastly is if you have misconceptions or arrogance about data quality, everyone's data is there's issues with it. There's duplicates. You can buy data from HIMSS or other sources. There's problems with that data. Like I said, there's duplicates in it. There's data inconsistencies in it. So just plan on that and don't have misconceptions that the quality is perfect from those outside resources, as well as thinking that your own in-house data sources are perfect as well. This is when I was doing the research for this thing. This was kind of cartoon that I kind of hit home here about how much data is enough, and this is kind of a cartoon where, General Custer, came back and it suggested there was fewer Indians in there. So, in this case, he may not have had enough data. So you have to also realize how much data you need to have and how much is too little and how much is too much. In our case, we decided just to start off with 2 sources or 3 sources of data, but then grow it. And you just have to make a decision and a leap of faith of we think that these data sources are enough for us right now, and then add additional sources. For instance, you may start with your own CRM and financial system and having a couple other sources, but then you may end up with Facebook feeds and Twitter feeds on there as well. I brought this slide back up again just to kind of tell you and show you the different landscape on that. And you really, there's no silver bullet in this picture here. One does not work for all. And so you kind of have to make a determination on what you're trying to solve with your technology, with your infrastructure, what is right for you. That's basically what I'm trying to say here is there's not a one-size-fit-all in this customer landscape. You can look at Gartner and you can look at where their magic quadrant is as well, or you can ask people that's done big data projects, predictive analysis projects as well as a source of truth. But there's a lot of players out there. It's growing all the time. I know a lot of developers are going from DBAs to data scientists because that's the new buzzword right now. So there's going to be a lot of noise right now from people and companies and vendors. I probably get 5 calls a day just from big data vendors wanting to help, and they can solve all my problems. But so you just kind of have to cut through the noise and pick what's right for you. So in summary, and I'm way ahead of schedule, so I apologize. There's more time for Q&A. But in summary is you have to determine what your business problem is. What are you trying to solve? Who is your customer? And because if you determine what your business problem is, you'll be successful. What are your data sources? Is it your CRM, applicant tracking? Is it your financial system? Is it, are you going to take Facebook feeds and Twitter dumps? Are you going to look at vendor solutions like in our case HIMSS and Definitive Healthcare? What is your data sources, and agree to that up front. Like I said, I recommend to start small and grow and end up big. Because there's just, like I said, less noise there. And technology, do you outsource? Do you partner? Or do you have a data scientist in-house? In our case, we're partnering with Georgia State to help us go through the gigabytes of data in this project, and we're using their data scientists, and they're going to actually write a paper on this project, and then we get the intellectual property as well. Fourth is define the scope. You want to have phases in a project instead of the Big Bang theory. I've worked on Big Bang theories, and like I said, after 2 or 3 years, people kind of get tired of it, and they forget what the original scope of the project was. But if you have phases and you do this and do small success stories, it's much better. Define roles. So who's going to, I know this sounds silly and simple, but a lot of times people think their role in here is different than what you want it to be. Do you have a project manager? Do you have a data scientist? Do you have a business person? Do you have someone QA in the data? Define the different roles. How do you measure the success? In our case, we determine what the fill rate and the time to close should be, and if we meet that milestone, then we're successful. Without that, you don't know if you are or not, and so it's a clear sign that you've reached your milestone. Make sure your business and technology is aligned. Like I said before, the business may be wanting something that is different than technology. Technology just sometimes likes the shiny penny on the street, where a business is trying to solve something. Are the two things aligned? And like I mentioned before, small successes create large wins. Have small milestones in your big data project, predictive analysis project, and then it comes back with a large win. I'd like to open it up for questions. We have probably 20 minutes for questions and answers, and I went a lot faster than I thought.
So if someone does have a question, go ahead and you can raise your hand in the chat room, and we can go ahead and select you to ask the question. Or if you have it and you'd like to enter it in the room with everyone, go ahead. So I see that Raina had a question. Tim, I'm going to read it out loud to you. Where do you see a skills gap in the flow of predictive analysis? What specific roles are in demand?
It doesn't come into the
if you're also not muted, make sure to do that because Tim is still speaking. You can go ahead, Tim.
Sure. Probably the biggest. Someone needs to probably mute.
Someone needs to mute their phone.
Oh, there you go.
What?
Oh, that's probably my background noise. So I'll go ahead and mute myself, Tim.
Oh, okay. Probably the biggest skill gap is the data scientist, the person that can take the data, run some natural languages through, like R, and do that analysis. That's probably the biggest gap that we see now. Most people have DBAs and they can do the simple queries and maybe some of the complicated ones, but those are the biggest skills gaps we have. And that's why one reason we didn't want to hire a data scientist. We partnered with Georgia State. I'm on the advisory board of the one of their committees, and we're partnering with them for that.
All right, our next question is, you mentioned earlier about email harvesting. Can you expand on this capability, and if there are any tools you use to accomplish this and use cases?
Sure. So all your email content is data. We're not really using any. There's probably tools out there, but we're not using any of that. But what that is doing is taking that content on the body, and just like Twitter and Facebook, you're getting context or content that provides feelings, emotions, as well as key data in the data. So let me give you, for instance, on Facebook, you may say, I love Dallas, Texas, or I love lakes. Well, if you're in the business of tourism, or if you're in the body of selling boats, that may be helpful. So you are seeing trends of data. Same thing with data. If you're looking at and I'm talking about your corporate email systems, if you can capture that content, you can see trends in your data of people asking certain questions. That may go into a knowledge base. So questions about certain subjects are answered better or more thorough. So that's what I'm talking about there.
All right, our next question is, predictive analysis has been around over 10 years. Aside from new types of data, can you help us understand what's new?
Good question. I don't know if I agree that it's been around for 10 years in the form it's in now. It's more of a what I call a evolution than a revolution, where we really didn't have the tools 10 years ago without strong-arming things where you can make the how, the when, the what. A perfect example of that, of big data and predictive analysis, is what IBM has done with Watson. I mean, today Watson you can put in data about a diagnosis and the drugs that person's taken, and it can do a predictive analysis of what that diagnosis is. The doctor gives the diagnosis, but they use Watson to say and verify that diagnosis. We didn't have that 10 years ago. So the amount of data we have has increased, thousandfold, and the different variations of data we just didn't have 10 years ago. So it's just the ability to crunch the numbers better, and then also the different variations of data that's out there, like Facebook. Okay.
All right. Our next question is, can you expand on the slide depicting traditional IT processes versus new trends in business support, pluses and minuses of both?
You bet. Let me go to that slide. There it is. So what I'm trying to say there is, for years, and I'll just talk about us, when you needed to build a data repository and do ad hoc reporting, who did that? Who did you call? You called IT. You called downstairs and you talked to their DBA, and you had a BA, and they involved with building the modeling, the star schema for the Cognos and business objects, and IT did all of it. And then they produced reports. They went to the customer and said, "Is this what you want?" No. Okay. Then you changed it a little bit more. Is this what you want? Yes. So it's all IT specific. They were a lot of times running the reports. A lot of times they were determining all the how you're successful, and then they just passed the reports. That you got up in the morning to business, and then they saw the reports were run. They look at it and they said, "Oh, that's great." So it was very IT specific. And what I'm saying is, there's tools now where you don't have to do that. The business can run the reports and run the ad hoc and do the what ifs on the data. IT is not involved as much. So that's where on that column, the first one was IT produced, and then the other one was IT enabled, meaning IT is involved in looking at the tool, but the business actually produces the reports.
Awesome. Okay, we have another question. When do you know when you are done with big data or analytics projects? How do you explain to businesses that this is a continuous process and may not have an immediate business benefit?
Wow. It is true that you're never done. It's a continual improvement, just like continually you're always learning, right? Well, you do have the initial kickoff on the project, but you just have to convey to that there's different phases, and that's why I don't believe in the Big Bang. You do it in phases, and those phases could go out years. You show them the reason you're doing it is, hey, you find out what's keeping you up at night. In our case, it was the fill rate. And the fill rate is how quickly you fill a position. And you go to them, okay, it's 30%. If I can make it 20%, what would that mean to your business? So you have to find that key factor in whatever business you're in, travel, hospitality, whatever. what are the drivers that could move the needle for the business, and you get together and you agree on that. If you could do this, would that be of value for you? And I think the last part of the question was, if you're successful with that, it's the next project or the next phase of that, if it's not defined, will kind of grow organically. It will just happen. They'll be so happy, hey, what else can we do here? And it will just grow organically into a project. I've had so many projects here at Jackson where we were successful, and they go, okay, what can we do here? And then there's another driver. There's always priorities, right? And so there's another driving force that opens up another project.
All right, we have another question. I apologize if I mispronounced his name. My name is Yumin Wu, and I am a Georgia State student studying MSIS with concentration in Big Data Management and Analytics. Could you share more information about the project you are doing with Georgia State University? I would like to know if I could be a part of the program.
Yeah, I'm on the advisory board of it's the CHIT. It's the and the person that's in charge of that is Phyllis Parker, and we're working with. I'm looking for his card. He's the chairman of the chair of that department, and I'm looking for his card. Oh, here it is. Is Dr. Ramesh, and so speak to him. Is his he and his students, and then also. Just check out Dr. Dr. Ramesh. He's the chair of the CIS department. Okay.
Okay, great. And I think we have, there's one more question. There might be a couple more following up after that. Do the modern trends and availability of more talent foster the creation of internal skunkworks, IT, doing the heavy lifting and internal teams doing the refinement?
I'm not sure if I know the question. This project that we're doing right now that turned into a real project was skunk work, where we were trying to see if we looked at data, what we could do and what the what the technologies were out there. So this actually project was a skunk work that turned into a real project. I'm not sure if I answered that question. If not, just ask it a different way, please.
All right. The next one is, what BI and analytics platforms are you using today? Can you give us an idea about pros and cons of these tools, any that have been discarded and have had issues with them?
For this specific problem, we're using just SQL Server reporting analysis, and we're doing some natural language with R. But we've done, use Hadoop upstairs as well. But it's really you pick on the type of data, the amount of data, and the resources you can get at the time. But there's some good ones out there. We also use Verse for reporting. We've used ClickView in the past as well, but so.
All right. Our next question is, machine learning and predictive analytics terms can be confusing. Perhaps, thanks to marketing, how would you differentiate SP or the two?
So between machine learning and predictive analysis?
Yes.
Can you ask that question again?
Yeah, I'll repeat it one more time. Machine learning and predictive analytics terms can be confusing. Perhaps, thanks to marketing, how would you differentiate the two? And then it said in parentheses, SP question mark. Okay.
I can just pick an example. Machine learning is similar to Watson, where through the language it learns more about a patient in that case. And predictive analysis is more of the overall action of taking data and doing the what, the when of that, So they're not coming at a different angle. They're just predictive analysis is more of a broader term for the overall action that we're trying to use, and machine learning can be part of that. It could be a subset of that.
Well, at the moment, I don't see any more questions. So if anyone does have any more, we'll give you about another second or two to write them down really quick. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Tim?
No, I think it was great questions. It used up the rest of the time, so that was great. If there's any questions, my email address is on the front of the presentation, and you're more than happy to send me any kind of questions after the presentation, and be happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that we have actually a couple more people saying things. Here's another question.
Okay.
Of Hadoop or DB?
I heard Hadoop, but what was the rest of the question? Perry? Perry? Hello? Is everyone still there?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened. The screen went down, and I lost what you were asking.
We're also not hearing anything, so that's just you.
Yeah. Perry, are you still there? I think we lost Perry.
Others are also on.